They brought out your ice cream on a stretcher with sirens, drums, and cheering waiters, and that was just a typical birthday at Farrell's. Then there was the chicken place so bright it drove Kramer crazy on Seinfeld. In this video, we're counting down 10 forgotten 90s restaurants that once ruled your childhood. And fair warning, by the end, you might be craving a sundae the size of your head. 10 Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. At Farrell's, birthdays weren't just celebrated, they were announced with sirens, drums, and sundaes carried out on stretchers. Founded in Portland in 1963, this over-the-top ice cream parlor turned every visit into a carnival. With staff in striped vests, player pianos clinking in the background, and comically huge sundaes like the Zoo and the Trough, Farrell's made dessert unforgettable. Finishing the trough earned you applause and a ribbon that declared, "I made a pig of myself at Farrell's." For 90s kids, it was a sugar-soaked badge of honor. Though its peak came in the 70s, the fun lasted decades. But after changing hands and a failed revival in the 2000s, Farrell's faded. By 2019, the last location closed. Still, for anyone who ever heard those drums roll, Farrell's lives on, in memory sticky with hot fudge and sprinkles. 9 Kenny Rogers Roasters, a 90s favorite that was featured on Seinfeld. There was a time in the 90s when dinner meant rotisserie chicken so tender and smoky, it felt like it came straight from a southern porch. That was the magic of Kenny Rogers Roasters. Co-founded in 1991 by country legend Kenny Rogers and former KFC exec John Y. Brown Jr., this warm, wood-paneled eatery served up golden chicken, buttery corn muffins, and hearty sides that made every plate feel home-cooked. At its peak in the mid-90s, Kenny Rogers Roasters boasted over 350 locations worldwide. Its wholesome image and less fat, less salt, less calories motto winning over families everywhere. But the competition was fierce. The Boston market surged. KFC responded with its own rotisserie menu. The novelty began to fade. By 1998, the company filed for bankruptcy, and by 2011, its last American location had quietly served its final meal. Yet pop culture had other plans. In a now iconic Seinfeld episode, Kramer loses his mind over a blinding red neon sign from the Roasters across the street, while Jerry secretly falls for the chicken. Just like that, Kenny Rogers Roasters cemented its place in TV history and became a quirky symbol of 90s dining. And though it vanished from American streets, the brand lives on, in malls and food courts across Asia, where the neon still glows and the rotisserie still turns. Next at 8 is Sizzler, the place where the salad bar was the main event. Founded in 1958 by Del and Helen Johnson in Culver City, California, Sizzler started with a simple mission: good steak at a good price. But by the time the 90s rolled around, it had evolved into a full-blown family favorite, with hundreds of locations across the country and an all-you-can-eat salad bar that could have doubled as a buffet line at a wedding. Pasta salads, Jell-O, sunflower seeds, ranch dressing galore. If it fit on a plate, it probably ended up on yours. Of course, there was the famous cheese toast too, warm, crispy, buttery, and somehow always better than the steak it came with. But time wasn't kind. As fast casual chains grew sleeker and tastes changed, Sizzler began to feel more like a relic than a destination. The chain filed for bankruptcy in 1996. Locations closed quietly, one after another, until only a handful remained. Today, Sizzler still exists in name, but for many, it lives on as a memory of overfilled trays, birthday dinners, and the unmistakable crunch of too many croutons. At 7 is the wild, the wacky, the unforgettable Rainforest Cafe, aka Dinner in the Jungle. Where else could you eat a burger while a thunderstorm erupted over your head and an animatronic gorilla stared into your soul? Opening in 1994, Rainforest Cafe wasn't just about food, it was an experience. The walls were covered in vines, the ceiling rumbled like a real rainforest, and every few minutes, the lights would flash and the animals would come to life. Kids were in awe, parents were slightly overwhelmed, but nobody ever forgot it. You didn't really go for the menu, you went to escape into a jungle fantasy. But over time, the magic got harder to maintain. Those giant fish tanks and robotic elephants didn't come cheap. Slowly, the locations started disappearing. Today, only a few survive in big tourist cities. Still, for anyone who grew up in the 90s, Rainforest Cafe is unforgettable as the place where you ate chicken tenders under a stormy sky and loved every minute of it. Coming in at 6 is Chi-Chi's. There was a time when Chi-Chi's was the life of the party. Founded in 1975, this colorful chain brought a Tex-Mex twist to the suburbs, and for many families, it was their first taste of anything close to Mexican cuisine. With sizzling chimichangas, never-ending baskets of chips, and those frosty margaritas parents never stopped raving about, Chi-Chi's felt more like a fiesta than a restaurant. The walls were covered in sombreros, the air filled with laughter and birthday songs that always seemed a bit off-key. For kids growing up in the 90s, it was an unforgettable introduction to a world of bold flavors and bright lights. But behind the scenes, things took a darker turn. By the early 2000s, the company was already struggling to stay afloat. Then, in 2003, a hepatitis A outbreak linked to tainted green onions brought tragedy and headlines. Already on shaky ground, Chi-Chi's couldn't recover. Most locations closed not long after. Today, the name survives on salsa jars in grocery stores, but the restaurants are long gone. Still, the memories linger of sizzling plates, festive colors, and nights when every dinner felt like a celebration. At 5, we've got Steak and Ale, the go-to spot when your parents wanted to feel fancy without splurging. Launched in 1966 by Norman Brinker, the restaurant brought an English tavern-style charm to American dining. With low lighting, wood-paneled walls, and booths that looked like they belonged in a castle, the vibe was pure, affordable elegance. In the 90s, kids sipped Shirley Temples while their parents ordered prime rib and baked potatoes wrapped in foil. Steak and Ale was ahead of its time, introducing salad bars and reasonably priced steak dinners before those ideas became standard. But even with that legacy, it couldn't keep pace. Ownership changes, shifting trends, and rising competition wore the brand down. By 2008, the final Steak and Ale quietly closed its doors. Today, it lives on in memory, dimly lit booths, soft background music, and the feeling that, for one night, you were dining somewhere truly special. At 4, we've got Red Barn, the fast food joint that feels like it came from a dream. Because for a lot of people, it basically did. Red Barn didn't shout for attention. It just sat there, quiet, red roofed, and shaped exactly like a barn. That simplicity made it stand out. Born in the 1960s, the chain served classic fast food, burgers, fried chicken, and fish sandwiches. And it did so with a down-home warmth that made it feel like more than just a pit stop. Even into the early 90s, you could find one tucked away off the highway or nestled in a neighborhood strip. But Red Barn wasn't built for the long haul. After a series of ownership changes, most locations were either sold or rebranded. There was no dramatic ending, just a slow fade into obscurity. Now it lives on in faint jingles and faded memories, where grabbing a quick burger meant pulling into a barn and hearing just maybe the echo of a simpler time. Next at 3, let's talk about Wags, Walgreens' unexpected leap into the diner world. Believe it or not, Walgreens once had a diner, and for a while, it kind of worked. Called Wags, these restaurants popped up in the 80s and offered breakfast, burgers, and milkshakes around the clock. With bright lights, big booths, and bottomless coffee, Wags was a cozy place for late-night chats or Sunday morning pancakes. It was especially popular in places like Chicago and Florida, where families came in for affordable meals and friendly service. But Walgreens wasn't in it for the long run. By the early 90s, competition from bigger diner chains made it clear Wags couldn't compete. The locations quietly closed one by one. Still, for anyone who ever split a chocolate shake at 1 a.m. or tried their first Belgian waffle there, Wags holds a warm, if blurry, spot in diner history. Too Big Boy, with his checkered overalls and towering burger, Big Boy was impossible to forget. But behind the smiling statue was a restaurant that once defined the classic American diner experience. Known for its double-decker burgers and all-day breakfasts, Big Boy was a fixture in the 90s, especially across the Midwest. For many families, it was the go-to spot after church or a big game. But behind the scenes, the brand was unraveling. Regional franchises split off, branding grew inconsistent, and quality dipped. Customers began to drift away, and locations started disappearing. A few still exist today, mostly in scattered towns where time seems to move a little slower. But for most of us, Big Boy is a flash of nostalgia, a smiling statue, a red booth, and the comforting weight of a burger that always required 2 hands. Finally, at 1, All-Star Cafe. In the mid-90s, sports and celebrity collided at the All-Star Cafe. Backed by names like Shaquille O'Neal, Andre Agassi, and Joe Montana, this chain was designed to be the Hard Rock Cafe of the sports world. And for a few bright years, it worked. Kids stared wide-eyed at the memorabilia, walls covered in jerseys and signed bats, TVs playing highlight reels from every major league. The food? Forgettable. But the vibe? Electric. It didn't last. Without strong food to back up the theme, and with trends shifting fast, the novelty wore off. By the early 2000s, most locations had vanished. But for anyone who visited, the memory stuck. It was loud, chaotic, and full of energy. A place where you felt just a little closer to your favorite player, even if only over a plate of fries. Which of these places do you remember best? And which one do you wish you could visit just one more time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more nostalgic trips through the past.